What if I told you that in the 1920s, a single neighborhood in New York City became the most powerful cultural force in America? What if I told you that Black artists, writers, and musicians didn't just demand a seat at the table? They built their own table and invited the world to witness genius. What if I told you they created a cultural revolution so powerful that white critics who believed Black people were biologically inferior had to admit we are the foundation of American culture? February 3, 1926, Harlem, New York, 135th Street and Lenox Avenue, 9 to 47 p.m. The smoke from cigars mixed with the sweet smell of perfume and sweat. The sound of a piano playing Duke Ellington's East St. Louis Toodaloo poured out onto the frozen street. Inside the Savoy Ballroom, 2,000 people, Black and white, rich and poor, danced together. Something that was illegal in most of America. Something that could get you killed in Mississippi. At a corner table, Langston Hughes, 24 years old, scribbled poetry on a napkin, the rhythm of jazz bleeding into his verses, the syncopation of the music becoming the heartbeat of his words. He wrote, "I too am American, not what I want to be. Please let me be. I am." 3 blocks away on 127th Street, Zora Neale Hurston sat in a cramped apartment interviewing an 87-year-old woman about folktales from slavery. Stories white historians said didn't matter. Stories white anthropologists said were primitive and childlike. Zora recorded every word in the woman's own voice, preserving what the world wanted erased. The air vibrated with possibility. Every street corner had a poet. Every speakeasy had a genius. Every brownstone held a revolution. This wasn't just music and art. This was war. A cultural war where Black excellence became the weapon that white supremacy couldn't defeat. What happened in Harlem between 1920 and 1937 would redefine American culture forever. It would prove that Black people created sophisticated art without white approval, without European education, without following white rules. It would establish that jazz, the music white critics called noise, was America's greatest cultural achievement. It would demonstrate that Black writers could create masterpieces in their own voice, using their own language, celebrating their own people. And then they erased it. They removed it from textbooks. They let the greatest writers die in poverty. They allowed white musicians to steal jazz and get rich while Black innovators stayed poor. They buried the Harlem Renaissance for 50 years, hoping you would never learn this truth. But today, that changes. Today, you learn what they tried to hide. Today, you discover your stolen cultural inheritance. This isn't the sanitized Black History Month version you learned in school. This is the real story. Raw, powerful, and dangerous. By the end of this video, you'll understand why they teach you about the suffering, but never about the triumph. Why they show you the oppression, but hide the genius. After this video, you'll know why hip-hop, R&B, and every form of Black artistic expression today exists because of what happened in 1920s Harlem. You'll understand why Langston Hughes was considered more dangerous than any militant, because his poetry made Black people believe they were beautiful without white approval. You'll see why Zora Neale Hurston's folklore collection threatened the entire narrative of Black inferiority. You'll discover why jazz musicians were surveilled by the FBI, why their music was called dangerous, why white audiences flocked to Harlem, while white politicians tried to shut it down. This isn't ancient history. Your grandparents lived during the Harlem Renaissance. Your great-grandparents might have been part of it. The jazz your grandmother loved, born in Harlem. The Black pride your grandfather taught you, forged in Harlem. The confidence to create without permission. That's Harlem's gift to you. By the end of this video, you'll know how Langston Hughes weaponized poetry to destroy Black inferiority. Why Zora Neale Hurston's folklore saved a culture white America tried to erase. How jazz became the sound of Black liberation. Why the Harlem Renaissance was systematically removed from textbooks. and you'll never see American culture the same way again. This is your history. This affects your life today. Let's begin. 1916. The trains heading north were packed, standing room only. Families with suitcases tied with rope, children holding tight to their mothers' hands. Men with calloused palms from picking cotton looking for factory work. Old women who had been born enslaved, finally leaving the land of their bondage. They called it the Great Migration. I call it the Second Exodus. 6 million black people fleeing Pharaoh's terrorism for a promised land up north. 6 million. Between 1916 and 1970, 6 million black Americans left the South. Left Mississippi, where lynching was legal entertainment. Left Alabama, where black success was a death sentence. Left Georgia, where Jim Crow laws made you a second-class citizen in your own country. Left South Carolina, where you worked the land, but never owned it. Where sharecropping kept you enslaved in everything but name. Why did they leave? Because in the South, success killed you. Remember Thomas Moss, a successful grocery store owner in Memphis, Tennessee, March 9, 1892. A white mob lynched him because his black-owned store was taking business from white competitors. His last words were, "Tell my people to go west." There is no justice for them here. That's why they left. Because economic success made you a target. Because Jim Crow laws strangled every aspect of life. Separate water fountains, back of the bus. Couldn't try on clothes in stores. Couldn't eat at lunch counters. Couldn't vote without passing impossible literacy tests. Couldn't walk on the same side of the street as white people. Couldn't look a white person in the eye. Couldn't defend yourself when attacked. The law protected white violence and criminalized black existence. Because sharecropping was slavery with a different name. You worked from sunrise to sunset. The landowner provided seeds, tools, housing. You gave him half your crop. Sounds fair until you realize he also ran the only store where you could buy food and supplies. He set the prices. He kept the books. At harvest time, somehow, you always owed him more than your share of the crop was worth. Year after year, you went deeper into debt. Year after year, you couldn't leave because the law said you couldn't abandon your debt. Slavery. The North promised something different. Jobs in factories making real wages. Steel mills in Pittsburgh. Auto plants in Detroit. Meatpacking plants in Chicago. Railroads everywhere. These jobs paid 5 times what you could make sharecropping. 5 times. A man could earn enough to rent an apartment, feed his family, maybe even save money. The North promised freedom to walk down the street without lowering your eyes. Freedom to gather in public without white permission. Freedom to educate your children in schools that weren't falling apart. Freedom to vote without terrorist intimidation. Freedom to defend yourself without being lynched for it. So they came. In 1910, New York City had 91,000 black residents. By 1920, that number jumped to 152,000. By 1930, 327,000. The black population more than tripled in 20 years. They came from Virginia, from the Carolinas, from Georgia, from Florida. They rode trains north, packed into colored-only cars with wooden benches and broken windows. They arrived at Pennsylvania Station with everything they owned in one suitcase. And most of them went to Harlem. Harlem in 1910 was a white neighborhood. A wealthy white neighborhood. Beautiful brownstone houses. Tree-lined streets. New apartment buildings. But white residents started moving out, heading to other parts of Manhattan and to the suburbs. Real estate developers panicked. All these empty buildings. All this lost rental income. A black real estate agent named Philip Payton saw an opportunity. He convinced white landlords to rent to black tenants. He promised they would pay on time, take care of the properties, cause no trouble. Desperate landlords agreed. Black families started moving in. More white families moved out. By 1920, Harlem was transforming from 90% white to majority black. This wasn't white flight in the racist sense. This was economic opportunity, meeting demographic shift. Black families moving north needed housing. Harlem had housing. And for the first time, black people could rent nice apartments in a nice neighborhood. Not the slums, not the worst buildings, nice places. Between 1916 and 1930, Harlem's black population exploded, from a few thousand to over 200,000, an entire community forming in just 14 years. And these weren't just poor migrants. Yes, factory workers came. Yes, laborers came. But also teachers, preachers, doctors, lawyers, musicians, writers, entrepreneurs. The entire spectrum of black talent and ambition concentrated in 50 square blocks of Manhattan. By 1920, Harlem had become the black cultural capital of the world. The most significant concentration of black intellectual and artistic talent anywhere on Earth. 135th Street and Lenox Avenue became the crossroads of black genius. Walk 2 blocks, and you'd pass Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, Count T, Cullen, Claude McKay, Nella Larson, W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, all within shouting distance. All living, working, creating in the same neighborhood at the same time. Think about that. The greatest poets, novelists, musicians, intellectuals, and activists of a generation all gathered in one place. All talking to each other. All inspiring each other. All competing with each other. All pushing each other to be better. The Harlem branch of the New York Public Library at 135th Street became a gathering place for intellectuals. Poets read their work there. Scholars researched there. Debates happened there. The library's African-American collection, started by a Puerto Rican scholar named Arturo Schomburg, grew into one of the world's greatest collections of black history. Today, it's the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. But in 1925, it was just a library where black genius gathered every evening. Churches weren't just places of worship. They were political headquarters, cultural centers, community hubs. Abyssinian Baptist Church on 138th Street, led by Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Sr., had over 10,000 members by 1925, the largest Protestant congregation in America. On Sunday mornings, the church was packed. The choir sang spirituals and gospel. The preacher delivered sermons about justice and dignity. After service, the basement became a meeting hall, political organizing, business networking, community planning. Businesses thrived. Black-owned barbershops on every other corner. Restaurants serving Southern food, Caribbean food. African-inspired dishes. Tailors making custom suits. Bookstores selling black literature that white stores wouldn't carry. Theaters showing films and hosting performances. Beauty salons, grocery stores, nightclubs, speakeasies. An entire economy created by and for black people. For the first time since Reconstruction ended in 1877, black people were creating their own economy, their own institutions, their own cultural production, without asking white permission. They weren't integrating into white society. They were building their own society. Parallel. Separate by choice, not by oppression. And it was thriving. Something electric happened when that many talented, educated, ambitious black people gathered in one place. Energy. Creative energy that crackled like lightning. Ideas bouncing from person to person. Collaborations forming over dinner. Debates lasting until 3 a.m. in someone's living room. They started salons, gatherings in people's homes, where writers read poetry, musicians performed, intellectuals debated. Alelia Walker, daughter of Madam C.J. Walker, America's first black woman millionaire, opened her mansion at 108 West 136th Street for parties every weekend. She called it the Dark Tower after a Count T. Cullen poem. Black artists mixed with white patrons, radicals mixed with intellectuals. Poets mixed with jazz musicians. Harlem's elite mixed with downtown Manhattan's bohemians. These weren't just parties. They were laboratories, experiments in black excellence, proof that black culture didn't need white approval to be brilliant, proof that black people could create sophisticated art-complex literature, innovative music without European training or white guidance. Publishers started black magazines. The Crisis, edited by W.E.B. Du Bois, the brilliant scholar and co-founder of the NAACP. By 1920, The Crisis had 100,000 monthly readers. It published black poetry, black essays, black art that mainstream white publications refused to touch. It argued for immediate equality for civil rights, for an end to lynching and segregation. Opportunity magazine, edited by Charles S. Johnson, focused on black achievement. It hosted literary contests with cash prizes. Young writers submitted poems and stories. Winners got published and paid. Langston Hughes won first prize in 1925 for his poem, The Weary Blues. Zora Neale Hurston won second prize for her short story, Spunk. These contests launched careers. Then, in 1926, a group of young black artists got tired of respectable magazines telling them what to write. Langston Hughes, Zora, Neale, Hurston, Wallace, Thurman, Aaron Douglas, and others created their own magazine. They called it Fire 2! Because they wanted to burn down the old ideas about what black art should be. They wanted raw, honest, unapologetic blackness on the page. Fire published one issue, November 1926. It featured poems about black life in harsh, realistic language. Stories about black sexuality, about same-sex desire, about colorism within the black community. Art that celebrated African features and African heritage. It was revolutionary. It was shocking. It was beautiful. Black intellectuals hated it. W.E.B. Du Bois called it disgusting. The black church called it sinful. Older black leaders said this is not the image we should present to white America. We should show ourselves as respectable, educated, refined. Not this raw, sexual, working-class blackness. The young artists didn't care. Langston Hughes wrote an essay for The Nation magazine titled The Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain. Published June 23, 1926. It became the manifesto of the Harlem Renaissance. He wrote, "We younger Negro artists who create now intend to express our individual dark-skinned selves without fear or shame. If white people are pleased, we are glad. If they are not, it doesn't matter. We know we are beautiful, and ugly too." Read that again. We know we are beautiful. Without white approval, without white validation. We know we are beautiful. This was revolutionary in 1926. This was the Black Power movement 40 years early. This was Black is beautiful before that phrase existed. Hughes was telling black artists, stop begging white people to like your work. Stop softening it for white comfort. Create for yourself. Create for your community. If white people appreciate it, fine. If they don't, who cares? This terrified white America. A black man declaring independence from white judgment, unacceptable, dangerous. This was the attitude that got you killed in the South. But in Harlem, you could say it out loud. You could publish it in a national magazine. You could live it, and white people noticed. White writers like Carl Van Vechten visited Harlem fascinated by the creativity. He wrote a controversial novel called Nigger Heaven about Harlem nightlife. Black intellectuals were furious about the title, but the book made Harlem famous nationwide. White audiences started coming uptown to hear jazz, to watch performances, to experience this black cultural explosion. White critics, who had spent their careers claiming black people contributed nothing to civilization, suddenly had to contend with undeniable genius. They couldn't ignore Langston Hughes's poetry. They couldn't dismiss Duke Ellington's compositions. They couldn't deny Louis Armstrong's trumpet mastery. So they tried to control the narrative. They called it primitive genius, instinctive talent, natural rhythm. Anything to avoid admitting that black artists were intellectually creating sophisticated, complex, innovative art. But the art spoke for itself, and it changed everything. Here's what made Harlem different from the South. In Mississippi, in 1925, if you wrote a poem celebrating black pride, you could be lynched. If you published an essay arguing for equality, white mobs would burn your newspaper office and threaten your life. If you gathered with other black people to discuss political action, police would arrest you for conspiracy. In Georgia, if you opened a bookstore selling black literature, white terrorists would destroy it. If you performed music celebrating African heritage, authorities would shut you down for disturbing the peace. If you painted art depicting black people as beautiful and powerful, you'd be accused of inciting uprising. In Alabama, if you dared to preserve black folklore and oral traditions, white anthropologists would mock you and dismiss your work as unscholarly. If you wrote fiction about black characters who weren't subservient to white people, publishers wouldn't touch it. But in Harlem, you could publish, you could perform, you could gather. You could celebrate blackness without immediate death. You could walk into the Harlem Branch Library and find books by black authors about black people. You could attend a salon at A'Lelia Walker's mansion and debate the future of the race without police raiding the gathering. You could perform at the Cotton Club or the Savoy Ballroom or Small's Paradise and know you'd make it home alive. Don't misunderstand. Harlem wasn't paradise. Racism existed. Police brutality existed. Most black families in Harlem lived in overcrowded apartments, paying higher rent than white families paid for better housing elsewhere. Poverty existed. Discrimination existed. But the level of creative freedom was unprecedented. The ability to gather in large numbers, to organize, to create, to celebrate black culture openly, that was new. That was powerful. That was dangerous to white supremacy. Black artists in Harlem didn't have to filter their work through white approval before creating it. They could be authentically, unapologetically black. Langston Hughes could write "I Too Sing America" and publish it without white editors demanding he soften the message. Zora Neale Hurston could collect folklore in black Southern dialect without white anthropologists telling her to translate it into proper English. Duke Ellington could compose complex jazz that refused to follow European classical rules. Louis Armstrong could improvise solos that broke every convention of Western music. This freedom limited, as it was unleashed a creative explosion that changed American culture forever. And it started with the poets. It started with a young man named Langston Hughes, who understood that words were weapons, and poetry was war. Langston Hughes. Born February 1st, 1901 in Joplin, Missouri. Died May 22nd, 1967 in New York City. 66 years of fighting with a pen. 66 years of making white supremacy uncomfortable. 66 years of making black people proud. His grandmother, Mary Patterson, Leary Langston, was married to a man who died fighting with John Brown at Harper's Ferry in 1859. Revolution was in his blood. His grandmother raised him on stories of Frederick Douglass of Sojourner, truth of black people who didn't bow, who didn't beg, who didn't wait for white people to grant them humanity. His mother, Carrie Langston, moved constantly looking for work, teacher jobs in small towns across Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, never making enough money, never staying long enough to build stability. His father, James Hughes, abandoned the family and moved to Mexico, disgusted with American racism, refusing to raise his son in a country that would treat him as subhuman. Langston grew up poor, living with his grandmother in Lawrence, Kansas until she died when he was 13, then bouncing between his mother in Illinois and family friends in Kansas, wearing clothes that didn't fit, eating meals he wasn't sure would come. reading books from the library because they were free. But he was brilliant. Sharp mind, sharper pen. He started writing poetry in 8th grade. By high school in Cleveland, Ohio, he was writing regularly. His English teacher, a white woman, told him black people couldn't write real poetry. They didn't have the intellectual capacity for sophisticated artistic expression. Langston smiled, thanked her, and kept writing. He was elected class poet his senior year, the first black student in his school's history to hold that position, 1920. Langston Hughes, age 19, publishes his first poem in the Crisis magazine. It's called The Negro Speaks of Rivers. He wrote it on a train crossing the Mississippi River, heading to visit his father in Mexico. The movement of the train, the sight of the river, the thoughts of his ancestors who had been enslaved on the banks of that river, all of it poured into the poem. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. He lists rivers. The Euphrates in ancient Mesopotamia, where human civilization began. The Congo in Africa, where his ancestors came from. The Nile in Egypt, where black Africans built pyramids and ruled empires. The Mississippi in America, where enslaved people sang sorrow songs while working. The message is clear. Black people aren't inferior. Black people aren't newcomers to civilization. Black people built Egypt, built kingdoms, built the foundations of human culture. We are ancient. We are foundational. We are essential. This was revolutionary in 1920, when white textbooks taught that Africans had no history, no culture, no contribution to civilization. When white anthropologists claimed black people were biologically closer to apes than to white humans. When white historians erased every black achievement and contribution. Langston Hughes, 19 years old. One poem destroyed that lie. He connected black Americans to ancient rivers, ancient civilizations, ancient wisdom. He claimed history. He claimed legacy. He claimed pride. And he did it with language so beautiful that even racist white critics couldn't deny its power. W.E.B. Du Bois published the poem in the Crisis. Within months, Langston Hughes was famous among black intellectuals. This young man from Missouri, who wrote like his soul, had lived 1,000 years. 1921. Langston enrolls at Columbia University in New York City. His father agreed to pay tuition if Langston studied engineering. Practical, profitable, safe. But Langston wanted to write. He wanted to create. He spent one miserable year at Columbia suffocating in the white academic environment, then dropped out. His father cut him off financially. Fine, Langston would find his own way. He worked on merchant ships traveling to Africa and Europe. He saw Senegal, Nigeria, the Congo. He walked on African soil and felt connected to something ancient. He worked in Paris, washing dishes in nightclubs, soaking in the expatriate artist scene. He kept writing, always writing. Poems in notebooks, verses on napkins, words flowing like those ancient rivers. 1924. Langston Hughes returns to New York and moves to Harlem. He's 23 years old, broke and burning with creative fire. He takes a job as a busboy at the Wardman Park Hotel in Washington, D.C. to save money. But every evening he's writing. December 1924. Poet Vachel Lindsay, a famous white poet, is eating dinner at the Wardman Park Hotel. Langston is his busboy. Langston slips 3 of his poems beside Lindsay's plate. No introduction, no explanation, just the poems. Lindsay reads them. That night, Lindsay announces to a crowd that he's discovered a black busboy poet of tremendous talent. Newspapers cover it. Suddenly, Langston Hughes is national news. The busboy poet. It's demeaning. It's condescending. It's white savior nonsense. But it gets Langston's name in front of publishers. And that's what matters. 1925. Langston moves permanently to Harlem. He attends a literary awards dinner hosted by Opportunity magazine. He submits his poem, The Weary Blues, to their contest. He wins first prize, $40 and publication in the magazine. More importantly, he meets everyone who matters in Black literary circles that night. County Cullen, another young Black poet. Zora Neale Hurston, a brilliant anthropology student from Florida. W.E.B. Du Bois, the great scholar. Carl Van Vechten, a white writer fascinated by Harlem. Langston performs at the awards ceremony. He doesn't just read his poems, he performs them. He uses the rhythms of jazz, the cadence of blues, the call and response of Black churches. His voice rises and falls like music. People are mesmerized. This isn't traditional poetry. This is something new. This is Black music made into words. 1926. Langston publishes his first book of poetry, The Weary Blues. He's 25 years old. The book is groundbreaking. Every poem uses jazz and blues rhythms. Every poem celebrates Black life, Black people, Black culture. Not in protest against white oppression, but in joy of Black existence. There are poems about jazz musicians, about Harlem nightlife, about working-class Black people. Written in their language, with their rhythms honoring their dignity. White critics don't know what to do with it. Some praise it as fresh and innovative. Others dismiss it as not real poetry because it doesn't follow European poetic conventions. Black critics are divided. Some celebrate it as authentic Black expression. Others, including W.E.B. Du Bois, worry that it presents Black people as uneducated and reinforces white stereotypes. Langston doesn't care about either group. He's not writing for white approval or Black respectability. He's writing for the washerwomen and porters and factory workers and jazz musicians. He's writing for his people, the ones who don't read traditional poetry because traditional poetry has nothing to do with their lives. That same year, 1926, Langston publishes his manifesto, the essay that would define the Harlem Renaissance and inspire generations of Black artists. The Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain, published in The Nation magazine, June 23, 1926. He begins by describing a young Black poet who says, "I want to be a poet, not a Negro poet." Langston dissects this statement. This young poet wants to be white, or at least wants to write like white poets, sound like white poets, appeal to white audiences. He's ashamed of his Blackness. He sees being Black as a mountain standing between him and being a real artist. Langston demolishes this thinking. He writes, "We, younger Negro artists who create, now intend to express our individual dark-skinned selves without fear or shame. If white people are pleased, we are glad. If they are not, it doesn't matter. We know we are beautiful, and ugly too. The tom-tom cries, and the tom-tom laughs. If colored people are pleased, we are glad. If they are not, their displeasure doesn't matter either. We build our temples for tomorrow, strong as we know how, and we stand on top of the mountain free within ourselves. This is the Declaration of Independence. From white judgment, from Black respectability politics, from anyone who wants to control Black artistic expression. We will create what we want, how we want for ourselves. If you like it, great. If you don't, we don't care. We know we are beautiful." Think about the courage this took in 1926. Jim Crow laws still ruled the South. Lynching was at its peak. The Ku Klux Klan had millions of members nationwide. Black people were fighting just to survive, let alone thrive. And here's Langston Hughes saying, "We're not asking for your approval anymore. We're done begging. We're done softening ourselves for your comfort. We're beautiful. We're powerful. We're here. Deal with it." This terrified white America. The FBI opened a file on Langston Hughes in the 1940s that would grow to over 500 pages. They surveilled him for 25 years. Why? Because his poetry made black people believe they deserved equality. Because his words gave black people pride. Because a proud black population is dangerous to white supremacy. But Langston kept writing. 1930, he publishes Not Without Laughter, his first novel. 1932, he travels to the Soviet Union curious about communism as an alternative to racist capitalism. He returns disillusioned with Soviet reality, but sympathetic to socialist ideals. This marks him as dangerous in FBI files, 1940s and 50s. McCarthyism, the Red Scare. Anyone with leftist sympathies is accused of being a communist traitor. In 1953, Senator Joseph McCarthy's House Un-American Activities Committee calls Langston Hughes to testify. They demand he answer whether he's ever been a member of the Communist Party. Langston knows this is a trap. If he admits any communist affiliation, they'll use it to destroy black organizations and paint the entire civil rights movement as communist infiltration. If he refuses to answer, they'll hold him in contempt and destroy him personally. So he equivocates. He dodges. He admits to having written some pro-Soviet poems in the 1930s, but claims he's changed his views. He distances himself from radical politics publicly, while continuing to write radical poetry privately. This is what they did to every black leader who demanded equality. Paul Robeson, the great singer and actor and activist, destroyed by accusations of communism. W.E.B. Du Bois, the brilliant scholar forced into exile in Ghana. Marcus Garvey, imprisoned on false charges, then deported. If you couldn't be controlled, you were accused of communism. Then your reputation was destroyed, your livelihood taken, your voice silenced. But Langston survived, diminished, but not destroyed. He kept writing. 1951, he publishes Montage of a Dream, deferred a book-length poem about Harlem. One section is titled Harlem. It asks the question that would define the civil rights movement. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? Read that last line again. Or does it explode? This isn't just poetry. This is prophecy. This is warning. Langston is asking white America, what do you think happens when you deny black people their dreams for generation after generation? When you promise equality and deliver oppression? When you say, wait and wait and wait, while black children are brutalized, and black men are lynched, and black families are kept in poverty, what happens? Explosion, revolution, uprising. 10 years later, Watts exploded. Detroit exploded. Newark exploded. Every major American city burned in the late 1960s after Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. Langston Hughes predicted it in 1951. He warned them. They didn't listen. Lorraine Hansberry, the great black playwright, read that poem and titled her groundbreaking 1959 play, A Raisin in the Sun, the first play by a black woman produced on Broadway. The first play to honestly depict a black family's struggles with poverty, racism, and deferred dreams. All because of Langston Hughes's poem. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. quoted Langston Hughes in speeches. Malcolm X referenced him. Every civil rights leader knew his work because Langston had been saying since 1926 what they were fighting for in the 1960s. We are equal. We are beautiful. We are America. Stop asking us to wait. Stop telling us to be patient. We've waited long enough. But here's what they don't teach you. Langston Hughes never advocated passive resistance. He respected Dr. King's nonviolent strategy, but his poetry spoke of fighting back, of resistance, of revolution. His 1938 poem, Let America Be America Again, contains these lines. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet. and yet must be the land where every man is free. We, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, and the endless plain, all the stretch of these great green states, and make America again. This is radical. This is calling for systemic change. Not integration into the existing system, but transformation of the system itself. Not asking white people to share power, but demanding the people, especially black people, who built this country's wealth, reclaim it. By the 1960s, Langston Hughes was an elder statesman of black literature. Young poets visited him in Harlem seeking advice, seeking blessing. He mentored James Baldwin. He encouraged Lorraine Hansberry. He celebrated the rise of the black arts movement in the 1960s, seeing it as the continuation of what he started in the 1920s. May 22, 1967. Langston Hughes dies from complications after abdominal surgery. He's 65 years old. He's published 16 poetry collections, 10 plays, 3 autobiographies, 11 children's books, and countless essays. He's influenced 3 generations of writers. He's changed American literature forever. His funeral is held in Harlem at Benta's Funeral Home on 135th Street, just blocks from where he lived for 40 years. Thousands attend. They read his poem, Gone Boy, as his body is cremated. His ashes are mixed with other ashes and scattered. Later, some of his ashes are interred beneath the floor of the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, the library where he spent so many evenings researching and writing. Walk into that library today, and you'll see a floor medallion quoting his poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. Here's why Langston Hughes was dangerous. Not because he advocated violence, not because he joined the Communist Party, but because his poetry made black people proud, made them believe they were beautiful, made them stop seeking white approval. White supremacy depends on black people believing they're inferior, believing they need white civilization to be civilized, believing their culture is inferior, their art is primitive, their music is noise, their language is broken English. If black people believe these lies, they'll accept oppression, they'll wait patiently, they'll beg for scraps from the table instead of demanding their seat. Langston Hughes destroyed those lies with every line he wrote. He said, your dialect is beautiful, your jazz is sophisticated, your blues has more emotional depth than European classical music. Your folk culture is rich and complex. You don't need white approval. You are already whole. You are already worthy. You are already American. A gun can kill one person. A poem can awaken millions. When a young black girl in Mississippi in 1950 read I Too Sing America, she learned she wasn't inferior. She wasn't less than. She was American. She was worthy. She had the right to demand equality, not beg for it. When a young black man in Alabama in 1960 read The Negro Speaks of Rivers, he learned his ancestors built civilizations. He has history, he has legacy, he has power, stretching back thousands of years. He's not starting from nothing. He's continuing something ancient and powerful. That's why the FBI surveilled Langston Hughes for 25 years. That's why they tried to destroy him with communist accusations. That's why he was erased from textbooks for decades. That's why even today, when schools teach Hughes, they teach the safe poems, the ones about dreams and rivers, never the Negro artist and the racial mountain, never the radical manifestos, never the poems about revolution. They wanted you to think he was a gentle dreamer. He wasn't. He was a warrior. And his weapon was words. Words that changed consciousness. Words that made a people proud. Words that threatened the entire structure of white supremacy. And he wasn't alone. While Langston was writing poetry of revolution, another warrior was collecting the culture white America wanted erased. Her name was Zora Neale Hurston. And her story is even more incredible. Zora Neale Hurston. Born January 7, 1891, in Notasulga, Alabama. Died January 28, 1960, in Fort Pierce, Florida. 69 years of fighting to preserve what white America wanted destroyed. 69 years of saying black culture is valuable. Black stories matter. Black voices deserve to be heard exactly as they speak. She grew up in Eatonville, Florida. Listen carefully to this. Eatonville was America's first incorporated all-black town. Founded in 1887. Governed by black people. Mayor was black. Town council was black. Police were black. Businesses were black-owned. Schools were run by black teachers. This was unprecedented in the South. Growing up in Eatonville shaped everything about Zora. She didn't grow up bowing to white people. She didn't grow up being told she was inferior. She grew up watching black men govern, watching black businesses thrive, watching black community function independently. She saw black excellence as normal, as the default, not as an exception that needed white approval. Her father, John Hurston, was a Baptist preacher and a carpenter. He served 3 terms as mayor of Eatonville. Her mother, Lucy Ann Potts. Hurston told young Zora to jump at the sun, reach for the impossible. Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Don't let anyone make you small. In 1904, Zora is 13 years old. Her mother dies. Lucy Ann Hurston had been the force holding the family together. With her gone, everything collapsed. John Hurston remarried quickly. His new wife, Maddie, hated Zora, saw her as competition, saw her intelligence and confidence as threatening. Within months, Zora was sent away to boarding school in Jacksonville. Her father stopped paying the tuition. The school sent her home. Her stepmother refused to let her stay. Zora was essentially orphaned at 13. From age 13 to 26, Zora Neale Hurston survived. That's the only word for it. Survived. She worked as a maid for white families. She worked as a waitress. She worked as a manicurist in a Baltimore barbershop. Any job she could find. She moved from town to town, from family member to family member, never belonging anywhere, never having a home. But she never forgot education. Never stopped wanting to learn. Never accepted that her life would be cleaning white people's houses forever. 1917. Zora is 26 years old. 26. She enrolls in high school. Morgan Academy in Baltimore. She lies about her age, claims she's 16 because she's embarrassed to be so old, and just starting high school. She works as a manicurist during the day, attends school at night. She graduates in 1918, age 27. She enrolls at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Howard, the prestigious black university. She can't afford full-time enrollment, so she studies part-time while working full-time. It takes her years to complete a degree. But she's learning, she's reading, she's writing. At Howard, she takes a class with Alan Locke, a philosophy professor, and leading black intellectual. He recognizes her talent. He encourages her to write. She starts publishing short stories in the Howard University Literary Magazine. Her work gets noticed. In 1925, she submits a short story called Spunk to a literary contest hosted by Opportunity Magazine in New York. She wins second prize. She's invited to the awards ceremony in New York City. This is the same ceremony where Langston Hughes wins first prize for poetry. The same night where all the major figures of the Harlem Renaissance gather. The same night that will change both of their lives. May 1st, 1925, Zora Neale Hurston, age 34, arrives in New York City for the Opportunity Magazine Awards dinner. She has $1.50 in her pocket, one suitcase of clothes, manuscripts of short stories, and confidence that could fill Madison Square Garden. She walks into the awards dinner wearing a homemade dress. Everyone else is in expensive clothes. She doesn't care. She's not there to blend in. She performs. She doesn't just accept her award. She tells stories. She acts out characters from her fiction. She uses different voices, different accents. She makes people laugh. She makes them gasp. She makes them remember her. That night, she meets Langston Hughes. They become friends immediately. Both Southern-born. Both broke. Both determined to create art that celebrates Black people as they actually are not as respectable. Black leaders or white audiences want them to be. She meets County Cullen, the elegant poet who writes in traditional European forms. She meets W.E.B. Du Bois, the great scholar, who will later criticize her work as not political enough. She meets Carl van Vechten, the white writer, who will become her patron and supporter. Most importantly, she meets Annie Nathan Meyer, a white woman who founded Barnard College, the women's college, affiliated with Columbia University. Meyer is impressed by Zora's intelligence, her storytelling ability, her confidence. She offers Zora a scholarship to Barnard, a full scholarship. Zora Neale Hurston, who has been working as a manicurist, who lied about her age to finish high school, who has been dismissed and underestimated her entire life, is now a student at one of the most prestigious colleges in America, the only Black student at Barnard. Age 34, sitting in classes with 18-year-old white girls from wealthy families. She doesn't care about the age difference. She doesn't care about being the only Black student. She's there to learn. And she's studying with Franz Boas, the most important anthropologist in America. Franz Boas was revolutionary. While most white anthropologists in the 1920s were claiming that Black people and other non-white peoples were biologically inferior, evolutionarily less developed than white Europeans, Boas was saying, no. Culture is learned, not biological. Intelligence is not determined by race. Different cultures have different values, different practices, different knowledge systems. None is superior. None is inferior. They're different. Boas looked at Zora Neale Hurston and saw an opportunity. Here's a brilliant Black woman from the South who grew up immersed in Black Southern culture. She speaks the language, she knows the customs, she has access to communities that white anthropologists can't reach. She can collect Black folklore, Black oral traditions, Black cultural practices before they disappear, because that was the fear among anthropologists in the 1920s. Black Southern culture was changing. Older people who remembered slavery were dying. The Great Migration was taking young people away from the South. Traditional stories, songs, practices were being lost. Someone needed to collect them, preserve them, document them before they vanished. Boas told Zora, your culture is valuable. Your folklore is important. Go collect it. Go record the stories your grandmother told you. Go document the songs, the sermons, the jokes, the children's games, the conjure practices, the work songs. Go preserve it all. So Zora did something no Black scholar had done before. She went back south to collect Black folklore, not to judge it, not to analyze it through white academic frameworks, not to prove anything to white anthropologists, but to preserve it, to honor it, to present it exactly as Black people spoke it. 1927, Zora returns to Florida, traveling through small towns, interviewing elderly Black people, former slaves, children of slaves, preachers, conjure women, musicians, fishermen, turpentine workers, sawmill laborers, anyone who knew the old stories, the old songs, the old ways. She didn't approach them as an academic. She approached them as one of them. She wore simple clothes. She spoke in Southern Black dialect. She sat on porches, shelled peas, helped with chores. She made them comfortable. And they talked to her. They told her stories they would never tell white anthropologists. They sang her songs they would never perform for white audiences. They shared knowledge about conjure and hoodoo that they kept hidden from white people. She traveled through Alabama, through Louisiana, through Georgia. She went to lumber camps where men lived in rough barracks, working brutal hours cutting timber. She went to phosphate mines, where black laborers worked in dangerous conditions. She went to fishing villages on the Gulf Coast. Everywhere she collected stories. 1935. Zora publishes Mules and Men, the first collection of black folklore collected and published by a black person. White anthropologists had collected black folklore before, but they treated black people like specimens in a zoo. They mocked the dialect. They emphasized what they called primitive and childlike qualities. They presented black culture as evidence of biological inferiority. Zora's collection was completely different. She presented black folklore with respect, with context, with love. She explained that these stories weren't simple or primitive. They were sophisticated survival tools, coded lessons about how to navigate a world designed to destroy you. The Brer Rabbit stories, those trickster tales about a weak rabbit outsmarting stronger animals, those were instructions on how enslaved people could outwit masters, how the powerless could defeat the powerful through intelligence and cunning. Every time Brer Rabbit tricked Brer Fox or Brer Bear, enslaved children learned that you don't need physical strength to win. You need your wits. The spirituals, those songs about crossing the River Jordan, about following the North Star, about stealing away to Jesus, those contained coded messages about the Underground Railroad, about escape routes, about safe houses, information hidden in plain sight. White people heard religious songs, black people heard instructions for freedom, the conjure practices, those spiritual traditions about roots and herbs and calling on ancestors. Those preserved African religious knowledge that Christianity couldn't erase. White people called it superstition. Black people knew it was connection to African spirituality, to ancestral wisdom, to power that predated slavery. Zora documented all of it. She recorded work songs sung by turpentine workers. She transcribed sermons from country preachers. She wrote down children's games and the rhymes that went with them. She collected ghost stories and tales about haunted places. She documented courting rituals and wedding traditions. She preserved an entire culture. But here's what made her work radical. She didn't translate it into standard English. She didn't sanitize it for white audiences. She wrote everything exactly as people spoke it, in black Southern dialect, with all the colorful expressions, the unique grammar, the rhythm and music of how black Southerners actually talked. White academics criticized this. They said it wasn't scholarly. They said she should have translated it into proper English so educated readers could understand it. Black intellectuals criticized it too. They said she was making black people look uneducated, reinforcing white stereotypes. Zora didn't care. She wrote in the introduction to Mules and Men that she was presenting black culture on its own terms, not apologizing for it, not explaining it for white people, not making it respectable for black bourgeoisie, just presenting it as it was, beautiful, complex, worthy of preservation exactly as spoken. But Zora wasn't just an anthropologist. She was a novelist. And in 1937, she published the book that would make her immortal and get her erased for 40 years. Their eyes were watching God. She wrote it in 7 weeks while doing anthropological research in Haiti. 7 weeks of possessed writing. The story poured out of her. The story of Janie Crawford, a black woman in Florida searching for love, for identity, for self-determination. Janie is raised by her grandmother, a former slave who wants Janie to have security. So grandmother arranges for Janie to marry Logan Killix, an older man who owns 60 acres and a house. Security, stability, safety. Janie agrees, believing love will come after marriage. It doesn't. Logan treats her like a work mule, expects her to plow fields and haul wood, tells her she should be grateful he married her, so Janie leaves. She runs off with Joe Starks, an ambitious man, heading to Eatonville to become mayor of the all-black town. Joe is charming, confident, full of plans. He promises to treat Janie like a lady. He does, but he also wants to control her. He becomes mayor, opens a store, becomes the richest man in town. He makes Janie work in the store, but won't let her participate in the conversations on the porch where men tell stories and joke. He says she's too good for that, too refined. She should stay separate, stay quiet, stay pretty. Janie lives like this for 20 years. A beautiful possession, a trophy wife. Silent, controlled, dying inside. When Joe dies, Janie is almost 40 years old, and for the first time in her life, she's free. Then she meets Tea-Cake, a younger man, a migrant worker, a gambler, a guitar player, someone the respectable people of Eatonville look down on. He's not wealthy, he's not refined, he's not respectable. But he treats Janie as an equal. He teaches her to play checkers. He takes her fishing. He listens to her talk. He loves her not as a possession, but as a partner. Janie sells everything and runs off with Tea-Cake to the Everglades, where they work together picking beans. They live in a shack with migrant workers. They work hard during harvest season. They party and celebrate when work is done. Janie, the former mayor's wife, is happier living in poverty with Tea-Cake than she ever was living in comfort with Joe Starks. Then a hurricane comes, September 1928, the Okeechobee Hurricane, one of the deadliest hurricanes in American history. The lake overflows. The workers try to escape. Tea-Cake saves Janie from drowning. But in the flood, a rabid dog attacks Janie. Tea-Cake fights off the dog, but gets bitten. Rabies. Over the next weeks, Tea-Cake slowly loses his mind to rabies. In his final delirium, he tries to shoot Janie. She shoots him first. In self-defense, kills the man she loves to save her own life. She's arrested, tried. A jury of white men acquits her. They see it was self-defense. But she's lost everything. She returns to Eatonville alone. The novel ends with Janie telling this story to her friend Phoebe. She says she's lived, she's loved, she's experienced joy and tragedy. She's fulfilled. She's at peace. She's free. This novel was revolutionary. A black woman writing about black love, black desire, black sexuality. Janie has 3 husbands. She leaves 2 because they don't treat her right. She finds sexual pleasure with the 3rd. She makes choices about her own body, her own life. In 1937, this was shocking. Black women weren't supposed to have sexual agency. They weren't supposed to choose men based on love and attraction. They were supposed to choose security, respectability, survival. And Zora wrote the entire novel in black Southern dialect. Not just the dialogue, the narration too. The voice telling the story uses the rhythms, the expressions, the grammar of black Southern speech. Publishers told her to translate it into standard English. She refused. This is how my people speak. This is how I'm writing it. White critics mostly ignored the book. A few reviewed it condescendingly, praising it as a charming folk tale. They didn't see the depth. They didn't see the feminist message about a woman claiming her own life. They didn't see the radical act of writing black culture without apology. Black critics attacked it viciously. Richard Wright, the acclaimed author of Native Son, wrote a scathing review. He called Their Eyes Were Watching God a minstrel show. Said Zora was pandering to white stereotypes of black people as simple rural folkloric. Said she should be writing protest novels about racism and oppression, not romantic tales about relationships. Alain Locke, her former professor, said the book lacked social consciousness. Where was the anger about Jim Crow? Where was the protest against lynching? Where was the political message? Other black male critics agreed. They said black literature needed to be political, needed to fight for the race, needed to present black people as respectable, educated, urban, sophisticated. Zora rejected all of this. She wrote, "I am not tragically colored. There is no great sorrow dammed up in my soul, nor lurking behind my eyes." I do not belong to the sobbing school of Negrohood, who hold that nature somehow has given them a low-down, dirty deal. I do not weep at the world. I am too busy sharpening my oyster knife. Read that again. I am not tragically colored. I am not a victim. I am not defined by oppression. I am too busy living, creating, celebrating my people to perform suffering for white audiences. This is what made Zora dangerous. She refused to present black people as perpetual victims, waiting for white saviors. She refused to write black characters who only existed in relation to white oppression. She insisted on presenting black people as complex, flawed human. People who love, fight, laugh, make mistakes, experience joy. People whose lives are about more than racism. White liberals didn't like this because it didn't make them feel needed. If black people could have rich, full lives without white intervention, what was the white liberals' role? Black intellectuals didn't like this because it didn't advance the political cause. If black literature wasn't focused on protesting racism, how would it help fight for civil rights? Zora didn't care. She kept writing. 1938. Tell My Horse about her anthropological research in Haiti and Jamaica. 1939. Moses, Man of the Mountain. A novel reimagining the Moses story through the lens of black folklore. 1942. Her autobiography, Dust Tracks on a Road. 1948. Seraph on the Suwannee, a novel about white characters in Florida. But by the late 1940s, publishers weren't interested anymore. They said readers wanted protest novels. They wanted books about racism and civil rights. They wanted Richard Wright and Ralph Ellison writing about black suffering. They didn't want Zora Hurston writing about black folklore and black love. Zora couldn't get published, couldn't get grants, couldn't get teaching positions. By the 1950s, the greatest novelist of the Harlem Renaissance was working as a maid in Florida, cleaning white people's houses. The woman who had published 4 novels, 2 folklore collections, an autobiography, dozens of short stories and essays, was scrubbing toilets to survive. 1959. Zora has a stroke. She's penniless. She's placed in the St. Lucie County Welfare Home, a facility for indigent patients. She stays there for over a year. January 28, 1960. Zora Neale Hurston dies. She's 69 years old. She dies in a welfare home. The funeral is paid for by donations collected from the black community in Fort Pierce. She's buried in an unmarked grave in the Garden of Heavenly Rest, a segregated cemetery for black people. For 15 years, no one knew exactly where her grave was. The funeral home had records of the general location, but no marker existed. The grave was forgotten, overgrown, lost. In 1973, Alice Walker, a young black writer, reads, "Their eyes were watching God." She's stunned. Why has she never heard of this book? Why was this genius erased? She starts researching Zora's life. She discovers Zora died poor, died forgotten, buried in an unmarked grave. August 1973. Alice Walker travels to Fort Pierce, Florida. She searches the Garden of Heavenly Rest Cemetery with a funeral home director. They narrow down the location. Alice buys a headstone. She has it engraved, Zora Neale Hurston, a genius of the South. 1891 to 1960. Novelist, folklorist, anthropologist. During 1975, Alice Walker publishes an essay in Ms. Magazine titled In Search of Zora Neale Hurston. She tells the story of finding the grave. She argues that Zora was erased because she was too independent, too complex, too unwilling to perform the role that black leaders or white audiences wanted. The essay creates a sensation. People start reading Zora's work again. Their Eyes Were Watching God is republished in 1978. It becomes assigned reading in universities. By the 1990s, it's considered one of the greatest American novels of the 20th century. Today, it sells hundreds of thousands of copies every year. But here's the tragedy. Zora's estate sees nothing from this. She died with no will, no heirs. The copyrights eventually entered public domain. The books that now sell millions of copies generate no income for her descendants. The woman who died in poverty stays poor even in death, while publishers profit from her genius. This is how America treats Black genius. Use it, exploit it, dismiss it as not important. Let it die in poverty. Then rediscover it decades later and profit from it while the creator's family receives nothing. This happened to Zora. This happened to so many others. This is the pattern, and it continues today. But while Zora was preserving culture through words, other warriors were preserving it through sound. Jazz musicians who proved that Black music was the most sophisticated artistic expression in America. And the greatest of them all changed music forever. Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, two names that changed the world. Two geniuses who proved that jazz wasn't noise. It was America's classical music. It was the most important cultural contribution America ever made to the world. And it was created by Black people who white critics claimed were biologically incapable of sophisticated artistic expression. Jazz wasn't invented in Harlem. It was born in New Orleans around 1900 from the fusion of African rhythms blues, ragtime, and brass band music. But jazz became art in Harlem. Jazz became sophisticated in Harlem. Jazz became the sound of Black liberation in Harlem. Before Harlem, white critics dismissed jazz as noise, primitive, unmusical, evidence of Black people's inability to create real art. They said it was just banging on drums, just wailing on horns. No structure, no sophistication, just instinct and emotion. Proof that Black people could make sounds, but not music. Then, Duke Ellington started performing at the Cotton Club. Then, Louis Armstrong's recordings proved jazz was as complex as any European classical composition. Suddenly, white musicians were trying to copy it. White audiences were paying premium prices to hear it. White critics were scrambling to explain how primitive Black people created something so sophisticated. They tried to maintain the racist narrative. They called it primitive genius, instinctive talent, natural rhythm. They said jazz musicians didn't understand music theory. They just played by ear, born with it. Anything to avoid admitting that Black artists were intellectually creating sophisticated, complex, innovative art. But the music spoke for itself, and it changed everything. Here's what made jazz revolutionary. It didn't follow European rules. European classical music is written down, every note specified. Every performer plays the same notes every time. Structure, control, predictability. The composer controls everything. The conductor controls the performers. Everyone follows orders. Jazz improvised, spontaneous. Every performance unique. Musicians responding to each other in real time. Someone plays a phrase. Another musician answers. A conversation in music. The drummer creates a rhythm. The pianist builds on it. The trumpet soloist takes it somewhere unexpected. Everyone listening, everyone contributing, everyone creating together in the moment. European music stays in key, follows chord progressions, resolves dissonance to consonance, tension released to harmony. Rules. Structure, predictability. Jazz bends notes, uses dissonance as a feature, not a bug. Creates tension without always resolving it. Makes you uncomfortable. Makes you feel. Breaks every rule. This drove white critics insane. They said jazz wasn't real music because it broke the rules. But that was the point. It was Black people refusing to follow white rules, refusing to accept that European classical music was the only legitimate form of musical expression, refusing to believe that written composition was superior to improvisation. Jazz was freedom in sound. It was democracy in music. Everyone gets a solo. Everyone contributes. No dictator-conductor telling you exactly what to play. The collective creating something together. This was dangerous. This was revolutionary. This was Black people demonstrating an entirely different value system and proving it was just as sophisticated, just as beautiful, maybe more beautiful than white European traditions. Edward Kennedy Ellington, born April 29, 1899 in Washington, D.C. Died May 24, 1974 in New York City. 75 years of composing genius. 75 years of proving that Black artistic expression was sophisticated, complex, and unmatched. They called him Duke because even as a child, he carried himself with such elegance and confidence that friends said he looked like royalty. He started playing piano at age 7. His mother, Daisy Kennedy Ellington, insisted he learn properly. He took lessons, he studied, but he also listened to ragtime pianists in DC clubs. He absorbed both classical technique and Black musical innovations. By age 17, he was playing professionally at parties and clubs around Washington. In 1923, Duke, age 24, moves to New York. He forms a small band. They struggle at first, playing small clubs for little money. But Duke is composing, writing arrangements, creating a unique sound. By 1927, his orchestra is hired as the house band at the Cotton Club on 142nd Street and Lenox Avenue in Harlem. The Cotton Club had a racist policy. Black performers, white-only audiences. The club's owners were white gangsters. The waiters were Black. The dancers were Black. The musicians were Black. But the customers paying premium prices were exclusively white. Black Harlemites couldn't even enter as customers in their own neighborhood's most famous club. This was degrading, humiliating. But Duke played there because it paid well. $200 a week for the band, a fortune during the Great Depression. And more importantly, the Cotton Club had national radio broadcasts. Every week, Duke Ellington's orchestra was broadcast coast to coast. Millions of people heard him. This exposure made him famous nationwide. And Duke was composing, not just playing other people's songs, composing original works, complex arrangements, sophisticated harmonies. By 1930, Duke Ellington's orchestra was the most technically accomplished jazz ensemble in the world. He had the best musicians, the best arrangements, the most sophisticated sound. Duke composed over 3,000 songs in his lifetime. 3,000. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Mood Indigo, Sophisticated Lady, Take the A Train, Satin Doll, standards that defined the jazz era. Songs that became part of American culture. Songs that are still performed and recorded today, 50 years after his death. But Duke didn't just write 3-minute pop songs. He composed extended works. Jazz suites that lasted 45 minutes. Multi-movement compositions as complex as any classical symphony. January 23, 1943, Duke Ellington debuts Black, Brown, and Beige at Carnegie Hall. A 50-minute tone poem tracing Black American history from slavery through the Great Migration to Harlem. The first movement, Black, depicts slavery. The work songs, the spirituals, the suffering and resilience. The second movement, Brown, depicts emancipation and the struggles of Reconstruction and Jim Crow. The third movement, Beige, depicts the Great Migration and the Harlem Renaissance. The emergence of Black urban culture, the celebration of Black excellence. White critics attacked it. They said it was too ambitious, that jazz couldn't sustain that length, that Duke should stick to 3-minute dance numbers. Translation: Black musicians should know their place. Stay in your lane. Don't try to create serious art. That's for white European composers. Duke ignored them. He kept composing extended works, a tone parallel to Harlem. Such Sweet Thunder, inspired by Shakespeare. The Far East Suite. Sacred concerts, religious music performed in churches. He refused to be limited by white critics' expectations of what Black music should be. He was nominated for 12 Grammy Awards. won 9, received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Richard Nixon in 1969, performed for kings, queens, and presidents around the world. He played the White House. He played Buckingham Palace. He toured Europe, Asia, Africa, South America. Everywhere he went, audiences recognized genius. But Duke never forgot the contradiction. He could perform for the Queen of England, and the next day in New York, a cab driver would refuse to pick him up because he was black. He said, "Playing Mood Indigo for the Queen of England doesn't mean a thing if I can't get a cab in New York because I'm black." He understood. All the success, all the fame, all the international acclaim, none of it protected him from American racism. He was still a black man in America, still subject to Jim Crow in the South, still watched by suspicious police in the North, still treated as less than by a country that celebrated his music while oppressing his people. May 24, 1974, Duke Ellington dies of lung cancer and pneumonia. He's 75 years old. Over 10,000 people attend his funeral at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City. Ella Fitzgerald sings. Count Basie performs. President Nixon sends a message calling Duke a national treasure. He left behind 3,000 compositions, dozens of albums, thousands of performances, a completely transformed conception of what jazz could be. He proved jazz wasn't just dance music, it was serious art. As serious as anything coming out of European concert halls. More innovative, more influential, more lasting. And while Duke was proving jazz could be sophisticated composition, another genius was proving it could be transcendent improvisation. Louis Armstrong, born August 4, 1901 in New Orleans, died July 6, 1971 in New York City. 70 years of revolutionizing music. 70 years of proving that a black man from the poorest neighborhood in America could change how the entire world understands music. Louis grew up in desperate poverty. His father abandoned the family when Louis was an infant. His mother, Mary Albert, worked as a prostitute to survive. Louis was essentially raised on the streets of New Orleans, the roughest streets, the battlefield they called his neighborhood. Violence, drugs, crime, survival. New Year's Eve, 1912. Louis, age 11, fires a gun in the air celebrating. Someone reports him. Police arrest him. He's sent to the Colored Waifs Home for Boys, a reform school. This could have destroyed him. Instead, it saved him. The Waifs Home had a brass band. The director, Peter Davis, taught Louis to play cornet. Louis discovered he had a gift, an extraordinary gift. By age 13, he's released from the Waifs Home. He starts playing cornet in small bands around New Orleans. By age 20, he's good enough that Joe King Oliver, the best cornet player in New Orleans, invites Louis to join his band in Chicago. 1922, Louis moves to Chicago, joins King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band. Within a year, he's the star. His solos are electrifying, wild, innovative, like nothing anyone has heard before. 1924, Fletcher Henderson, who leads the best black orchestra in New York, hires Louis. Louis moves to Harlem. He starts recording, and his recordings change music forever. Before Louis Armstrong, jazz was ensemble music. Everyone played together, creating collective sound. Group improvisation. Louis invented the extended solo. He turned jazz into a soloist's art form, where individual genius could shine, where one musician could step forward and create something spontaneous and beautiful while the band supported. This became the template for all jazz that came after. The soloist backed by rhythm section. The solo as the centerpiece of the performance. His Hot 5 and Hot 7 recordings, made between 1925 and 1928 in Chicago, are some of the most important recordings in music history. West End Blues, recorded June 28, 1928, opens with a trumpet cadenza that's considered one of the greatest musical moments ever recorded. 15 seconds of pure improvisation, notes cascading, rhythm bending, melody soaring. Perfect! Classical musicians studied that cadenza, tried to transcribe it, tried to figure out how he did it. Jazz musicians memorized it, tried to copy it, tried to understand his technique. But Lewis was operating on a level beyond technique. He was channeling something, creating in the moment. Pure musical genius flowing through him. Louis also invented scat singing, using nonsense syllables to improvise vocals like an instrument. Ski-dot-da-dot, do-wop-day-do. He turned the human voice into a jazz instrument. When he couldn't find words to express what he was feeling, he just sang sounds. And those sounds became music. Every vocalist who came after, from Ella Fitzgerald to Billie Holiday to Sarah Vaughan, learned from Louis Armstrong. By the 1930s, Louis Armstrong was the most famous jazz musician in the world. White musicians studied his recordings like textbooks. Bing Crosby, the most popular singer in America, said Louis Armstrong taught him everything about phrasing, about rhythm, about emotional expression in singing. Every pop singer, every jazz singer, every musician playing American popular music was influenced by Louis Armstrong. But Louis faced an impossible dilemma. How do you maintain dignity while entertaining white audiences who see you as a novelty? How do you demand respect while performing in a society that considers you subhuman? Louis chose survival. He smiled. He joked. He played the lovable entertainer. He gave white audiences a comfortable, non-threatening black face. Some black critics accused him of Uncle Tom behavior. They said he was too deferential to white audiences, too willing to play the clown, too accommodating to racism. Miles Davis famously criticized Louis for grinning and mugging for white audiences instead of maintaining dignity. But here's what the critics didn't understand. Louis couldn't fight white supremacy with a fist. They'd destroy him. He'd be another dead black man. So he fought with his trumpet. He proved black excellence while giving white audiences a face they could accept. Strategic genius, survival genius, and when it mattered, Louis spoke up. 1957, Little Rock, Arkansas. 9 black students trying to integrate Central High School. Governor Orville Faubus calls in the National Guard to block them. President Dwight Eisenhower hesitates to intervene. Louis Armstrong, who has been careful his entire career not to be too political, explodes. He cancels a State Department-sponsored tour of the Soviet Union. He tells reporters the way they're treating my people in the South, the government can go to hell. He calls Eisenhower gutless for not protecting those children. He says he's ashamed to represent America abroad when America treats black people like dirt at home. This was national news. Louis Armstrong, America's goodwill ambassador, refusing to tour for the government. Calling the president gutless. Speaking truth that could have ended his career. But he did it. Because those were black children facing mobs. And he couldn't stay silent. July 6, 1971, Louis Armstrong dies of a heart attack. He's 70 years old. His funeral in New York is attended by thousands, musicians, fans, people whose lives were changed by his music. He left behind hundreds of recordings. He left behind a completely transformed understanding of what jazz could be, what trumpet could do, what improvisation could achieve. By 1930, even the most racist white critics had to admit jazz was America's greatest cultural export. European composers Igor Stravinsky, Maurice Ravel, Darius Milhaud studied jazz and incorporated it into their classical compositions. European audiences idolized black jazz musicians. In Paris, Josephine Baker, the black dancer and singer, was treated like royalty. In London, Louis Armstrong sold out concert halls. Duke Ellington toured Europe to massive acclaim. White America faced a humiliating reality. The culture they despised, created by the people they oppressed, was the thing the world most admired about America. European intellectuals and artists who looked down on American culture as crude and commercial were mesmerized by jazz. They recognized it as sophisticated, innovative, and profound. More exciting than European classical music, more emotionally powerful, more alive. Jazz proved black people created sophisticated art without European training, without white approval, without following white rules. It laid the foundation for every form of American music that came after. R&B grew from jazz. Rock and roll grew from jazz and blues. Funk grew from jazz. Hip-hop samples jazz. Every form of popular music in the 20th century has roots in what black musicians created in New Orleans and perfected in Harlem. When white teenagers in the 1950s rebelled with rock and roll, they were rebelling with black music that white musicians like Elvis Presley had copied from black artists. When white audiences in the 1960s embraced Motown, they were finally accepting music that black people had been creating for decades. The entire soundtrack of American life is black music, created by black genius, often stolen by white performers who got rich while black creators stayed poor. The confidence of black artists today to create without white approval. That's jazz's gift. That's the legacy of Duke Ellington saying, "I'm composing 50-minute suites, whether white critics like it or not." That's Louis Armstrong inventing an entirely new musical language and forcing the world to recognize its genius. That's every black musician in Harlem in the 1920s and 30s saying our music is valuable on its own terms. We're not asking for your permission. We're telling you, this is art. Deal with it. If this truth is hitting you, if you never learned how powerful the Harlem Renaissance was, type Harlem in the comments right now. If you didn't know that Langston Hughes was surveilled by the FBI for making black people proud, type Langston. If you didn't know Zora Neale Hurston died working as a maid after giving the world literary masterpieces, type Zora. If you didn't know jazz was considered dangerous by white authorities, type jazz. Your comments matter. They tell the algorithm this video is important. They push it to more people. More people who were lied to in school. More people who deserve to know their cultural inheritance. More people who need to understand that the Harlem Renaissance was the greatest cultural movement in American history, and they tried to erase it. Hit that like button if you're tired of sanitized black history. If you're done with textbooks that leave out the genius and only teach the suffering. If you're ready for the whole truth. Share this video right now. Don't wait. Share it with someone who loves jazz but doesn't know where it came from. Share it with someone who reads Zora Neale Hurston but doesn't know she died in poverty. Share it with your children, your family, your church members. Because this knowledge can't die with you. It must be passed forward. But hold on. Because what I'm about to show you next is even more enraging. It's not just that they created this cultural revolution. It's how white America systematically erased it. How they let the greatest artists die in poverty. How they removed it from textbooks. How they made sure your grandparents never learned this. And how that erasure continues today. They didn't just ignore the Harlem Renaissance. They systematically erased it. They let genius die in poverty. They removed it from textbooks. They made sure 3 generations of Americans grew up not knowing that the greatest cultural movement in American history was created by black people. This wasn't accident. This was policy. This was intentional. And the evidence is overwhelming. How many of you learned about the Harlem Renaissance in school? How many of you learned about Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong? Maybe you heard the names. Maybe you read one poem in February during Black History Month. But did anyone teach you that these artists changed American culture forever? That they proved black genius was undeniable? That white critics who believed black people were biologically inferior had to admit these artists were creating the most important art in America? No, they didn't teach you that. They couldn't, because if you learned that black people created sophisticated art-complex literature, innovative music in the 1920s and 30s, while facing Jim Crow and lynching and systemic oppression, you might ask uncomfortable questions. You might wonder why black people are still fighting for equality today. You might start connecting the dots between historical theft and current poverty. You might demand reparations, so they erased it. And here's exactly how they did it. For over 70 years, the Tulsa Race Massacre wasn't in Oklahoma textbooks. 70 years. 3 generations of Oklahoma students graduated, not knowing that in 1921, a white mob destroyed the wealthiest black community in America, murdered 300 black people, and burned 35 city blocks to the ground. It happened in their state, in their city, and they never learned about it because Oklahoma legislators decided it was too controversial. The same thing happened with the Harlem Renaissance. When it was mentioned in textbooks, it was 1 paragraph. A flowering of black arts in the 1920s. That's it. No context. No names. No explanation of why it mattered. No discussion of how it changed American culture. Just a footnote, an afterthought, a minor event in American history. Langston Hughes, if mentioned at all, was presented as a dreamer who wrote nice poems about rivers and raisins in the sun. His radical manifestos never mentioned. His essay, The Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain, where he declared, black artists didn't need white approval, never taught. His poems about revolution and resistance never assigned. They gave you the safe Langston, the one who dreamed, never the one who demanded, never the one who warned that deferred. Dreams explode. Zora Neale Hurston disappeared completely from textbooks from 1945 until the 1980s. 40 years of erasure. The greatest black female novelist of the 20th century, completely absent from American literature courses. Students read Hemingway and Fitzgerald and Steinbeck. All brilliant writers. All white. But Zora, who wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God, a novel that's now considered one of the greatest American novels ever written, not taught, not mentioned, erased. Jazz was taught as American music, without emphasizing it was black American music, created by black genius, often over white opposition. Students learned that jazz was popular in the 1920s, but they didn't learn that white critics called it primitive noise until Duke Ellington proved it was sophisticated art. They didn't learn that Louis Armstrong revolutionized music while facing discrimination so severe he couldn't eat in the restaurants where he performed. Why did they erase it? Because the Harlem Renaissance destroyed the narrative white America needed. The narrative that black people contributed nothing to American culture except physical labor. That black people were intellectually inferior. That they needed white civilization to lift them up. That segregation was justified because black culture was primitive and dangerous. If students learned about Langston Hughes declaring, "I am America," in 1925, they might ask why black people in 1965 were still marching for civil rights. If students learned about Black Harlem building a cultural empire while facing Jim Crow lynching and police brutality, they might understand that poverty isn't caused by black failure. It's caused by white theft, systematic generational ongoing theft. If students learned that white critics in the 1930s admitted jazz was America's greatest art form, while simultaneously supporting laws that kept black people segregated, the contradiction might expose the lie of white supremacy. You can't claim black people are inferior while celebrating art that black people created. The logic doesn't work. So they had to erase one side of the equation. They kept teaching that black people were inferior. They just stopped teaching about the genius that disproved it. And it wasn't just textbooks. White musicians copied jazz innovations and got rich while black innovators stayed poor. Benny Goodman, a white clarinetist, was called the King of Swing. He made millions playing swing music invented by Fletcher Henderson, Count Basie, and Duke Ellington. To Goodman's credit, he hired black musicians in his integrated band and acknowledged his debt to black innovators. But the wealth still flowed primarily to white musicians. The pattern repeated with every new form of black music. Elvis Presley became the king of rock and roll by singing black music created by black artists like Big Mama Thornton, Arthur Crudup, and Little Richard. Elvis was talented, but he was singing music that black artists had been performing for years. Music that white radio stations wouldn't play when black people performed it. But when Elvis sang it, suddenly it was acceptable. Suddenly, it was the biggest thing in music. And Elvis became a millionaire, while the black artists who created the music stayed poor. Pat Boone made millions recording sanitized versions of Little Richard's songs. Little Richard would release a wild, exciting rock and roll song. Pat Boone would cover it, removing all the energy and edge, making it safe for white audiences. Radio stations would play Pat Boone's version and ignore Little Richard's original. White teenagers would buy Pat Boone's records. Black genius. White profit. This wasn't cultural exchange. This was theft. Cultural appropriation for profit, while the originators were blocked from mainstream success by racist radio stations, racist record labels, and racist audiences who loved black music but wouldn't support black artists. Even successful Harlem Renaissance artists faced financial struggle that white artists didn't face. Duke Ellington performed at the Cotton Club for years, black performers entertaining white-only audiences. He couldn't even invite his own family to watch him perform. His mother couldn't sit in the audience to see her son's genius. The irony was suffocating. The humiliation was constant. Langston Hughes never became wealthy from his poetry. He supported himself with speaking engagements, teaching positions, and grants. Most black writers couldn't support themselves on writing alone. They needed day jobs. They needed patrons. They struggled financially their entire lives, while white writers with less talent and influence built comfortable careers. Zora Neale Hurston, one of America's greatest novelists, died working as a maid. Think about that. The woman who wrote, "Their eyes were watching God mules and men tell my horse." Moses, Man of the Mountain, the woman who single-handedly preserved black Southern folklore, died cleaning white people's houses. And when she died, she was buried in an unmarked grave. Forgotten. Erased. Until Alice Walker found her 13 years later and gave her the recognition she deserved. Black-owned businesses in Harlem struggled to get bank loans. Redlining policies created by the federal government in the 1930s designated black neighborhoods as high risk. Banks refused to lend money to black people. Even successful black business owners couldn't get loans to expand. Black families couldn't get mortgages to buy houses outside of designated black areas. Wealth couldn't accumulate, couldn't grow, couldn't pass to the next generation. The Great Depression hit Harlem harder than white neighborhoods. Black workers were last hired and first fired. Jobs disappeared. Businesses closed. Families struggled. The Harlem Renaissance didn't end because creativity died. It ended because economic survival became impossible. When you can't afford rent, you can't write poetry. When you're working 3 jobs, you can't paint. When you're worried about feeding your children, you can't compose music. And through all of this, the FBI was watching. They opened files on Langston Hughes, Paul Robeson, W.E.B. Du Bois, and countless other black intellectuals and artists. They surveilled them. They infiltrated their organizations. They disrupted their activities. Why? Because proud black people are dangerous to white supremacy. The FBI's COINTELPRO program, exposed in 1971, revealed decades of illegal surveillance and sabotage of black organizations. They infiltrated the NAACP. They spied on civil rights leaders. They sent anonymous letters trying to turn activists against each other. They worked with local police to harass and arrest black leaders on false charges. This was federal government policy. Systematic suppression of black excellence, black pride, black power. Langston Hughes's FBI file was over 500 pages. 500 pages of surveillance reports, lists of every speech he gave, every organization he joined, every article he published. For what crime writing poetry that made black people proud? That's it. That was his crime. Making black people believe they were beautiful, valuable, worthy of equality. That was dangerous enough to warrant 25 years of FBI surveillance. The Harlem Renaissance terrified white supremacy because it proved black people didn't need white approval to create genius. If black artists could create sophisticated literature without European education, maybe black people didn't need white civilization to be civilized. If black musicians could create complex music without classical training, maybe black people weren't intellectually inferior. If black culture was beautiful on its own terms, maybe white culture wasn't superior. These possibilities threatened the entire ideology of white supremacy. The ideology that justified slavery, that justified segregation, that justified denying black people the vote, that justified lynching and police brutality and economic exploitation. If black people were equal, if black culture was valuable, if black genius was undeniable, then none of the oppression was justified. It was all just cruelty, all just theft, all just terror. So they had to contain it, control it, and eventually erase it from memory. That's why the FBI surveilled Langston Hughes. That's why Zora died in poverty. That's why jazz musicians faced constant suspicion. That's why the Harlem Renaissance was removed from textbooks for 2 generations. Not because it failed, because it succeeded. And its success was dangerous to the system that profited from black oppression. But here's what they didn't count on. Truth doesn't die. It might be buried for decades, but it rises again. Alice Walker found Zora's grave in 1973 and forced the world to remember her genius. Scholars in the 1980s and 90s started teaching the Harlem Renaissance honestly, completely powerfully. Today, their eyes were watching. God sells hundreds of thousands of copies every year. Langston Hughes's poetry is taught in schools. Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong are recognized as among the greatest musicians America ever produced. The truth is coming out. Slowly, painfully, but it's coming. And now you know it. Now you understand what they tried to hide. Now you see the pattern. And now you need to understand why this matters today. Right now, in your life, in your family, in your community, the wealth gap didn't happen by accident. It's not because black people don't work hard. It's not because black culture doesn't value education. It's not because black families don't emphasize success. It's because they stole everything. Systematically, generationally, and they're still stealing. The median white household in America has $188,000 in wealth. The median black household has $24,000. That's 8 times less. 8 times. How is that possible in a country that claims to be equal? It's possible because they destroyed Black Wall Street. It's possible because they lynched black business owners. It's possible because they used eminent domain to bulldoze black neighborhoods and build highways through them. It's possible because redlining prevented black families from buying homes that would build equity. It's possible because they stole $100 trillion of black wealth over 4 centuries and never paid it back. If the families who owned businesses in Tulsa's Greenwood district in 1921 hadn't been massacred, if their businesses hadn't been burned, if their property hadn't been stolen, their descendants would be millionaires today. Wealth compounds, property values increase, businesses grow. That wealth passes to children, to grandchildren, to great-grandchildren. But you can't pass down wealth that was stolen. You can't inherit property that was burned. You can't build on success that was destroyed. If Duke Ellington had received royalties equal to what white musicians received, his family would be wealthy today. If Zora Neale Hurston's books had sold during her lifetime, instead of after her death, her descendants would benefit. If Langston Hughes had been paid fairly for every poem, every speech, every book, his estate would be substantial. But they weren't paid fairly. They were exploited. Their genius was used. Their art was copied. And they died poor while others got rich from their work. Multiply this across millions of black families, millions of stolen opportunities, millions of burned businesses, millions of unpaid wages, millions of denied loans, millions of seized properties. The math is clear. The wealth gap is theft. They say slavery was long ago. But the Tulsa Massacre was 1921, your grandparents' lifetime. Your great-grandparents might have been alive. Redlining didn't end until 1968, your parents' lifetime. Discriminatory lending practices continue today, your lifetime. The theft is ongoing. This is why they say reparations are owed, not as charity, not as apology, as payment for theft. When someone steals your property, they don't just apologize. They return it with interest. When someone burns your business, they don't just say, sorry. They pay damages. When someone enslaves your ancestors, exploits their labor for centuries, then systematically destroys every attempt to build wealth, they owe more than an acknowledgement. They owe payment. But the Harlem Renaissance proves something else. Something powerful. Something that should fill you with pride. Despite everything, black people created beauty. Despite oppression, black people created genius. Despite poverty, black people created art that changed the world. They couldn't stop it. They tried. They surveilled. They suppressed. They stole. They erased. But they couldn't stop the creativity. Couldn't stop the genius. Couldn't stop the culture from flourishing, even in the midst of terrorism. That's your inheritance. Not just the theft, the resilience, the creativity, the refusal to be broken. Your ancestors faced conditions designed to destroy them, and they created the Harlem Renaissance. They faced lynching, and they wrote poetry. They faced poverty, and they composed symphonies. They faced erasure, and they preserved culture. And every form of black artistic expression today exists because of what happened in 1920s Harlem. Hip-hop is Langston Hughes's poetry set to beats, the same rejection of respectability, the same use of vernacular language, the same celebration of black life without white approval. When Kendrick Lamar won the Pulitzer Prize for Damn in 2018, he was walking a path Langston Hughes cleared in 1921. When Nas raps about the streets with poetry and social commentary, he's continuing what Langston started. When Beyoncé performed at the 2016 Super Bowl, celebrating Black Panthers, wearing a costume that referenced the Black Power movement, she was channeling Zora Hurston's unapologetic blackness. When she released Lemonade, a visual album celebrating black women's complexity, pain, power, and beauty, she was doing what Zora did. In their eyes, we're watching God, refusing to soften, refusing to explain, refusing to make white audiences comfortable. When Kamasi Washington creates sprawling jazz compositions that blend spiritual jazz with hip-hop influences, he's honoring Duke Ellington's extended suites. When Robert Glasper fuses jazz with R&B and hip-hop, he's continuing the innovation that Duke and Lewis started. Every black musician who refuses to follow European rules, who creates from their own aesthetic values, who demands their art be taken seriously on its own terms, is living the legacy of Harlem. The debates about hip-hop today echo debates about jazz in the 1920s. White critics saying it's not real music, respectability politics. Black critics saying it makes us look bad. The same arguments about using vernacular language versus standard English. The same tensions between art and politics. The same questions about whether Black artists should create for themselves or create to advance the race. And the answer is the same. Create authentically. Create without apology. Create for yourself and your community first. If others appreciate it, fine. If they don't, it doesn't matter. We know we are beautiful. Langston Hughes said it in 1926. It's still true in 2025. Every time a Black artist refuses to soften their work for white audiences, they're honoring Harlem Renaissance principles. Every time a Black writer uses African American vernacular English in their work, they're following Zora's example. Every time a Black musician breaks rules and creates something new, they're continuing the jazz tradition. The struggle continues, but so does the resistance. And the Harlem Renaissance proved that resistance works, proved that Black genius can't be suppressed, proved that culture is power, and power, once claimed, can never be fully taken away. You are not victims. You are descendants of cultural warriors who changed the world. You are not asking for a seat at the table. Your ancestors built their own table in Harlem and invited the world to witness greatness. You are not waiting for white America to validate your culture. Your grandparents already proved Black culture shaped American culture. Everything from music to fashion to language to dance. American culture is Black culture. You are not starting from nothing. You're continuing something powerful. Langston Hughes wrote his first masterpiece at 19. Zora Hurston went to college at 26 and became a genius anthropologist and novelist. Duke Ellington composed 3,000 songs. Louis Armstrong invented modern jazz improvisation. That brilliance is in your DNA. That resilience is your inheritance. That pride is your birthright. Your ancestors created the most influential cultural movement in American history while facing Jim Crow, poverty lynching, and terrorism. They did this without grants, without corporate sponsors, without algorithms, without social media. They did it with genius determination and pride. If they could create the Harlem Renaissance under those conditions, what can you create today? Langston Hughes faced FBI surveillance for 25 years so you could write freely. Zora Neale Hurston died poor preserving culture so you would know your history. Duke Ellington endured Jim Crow while creating masterpieces so you could create without apology. Louis Armstrong smiled through racism while revolutionizing music so you could demand respect. They paid the price. They cleared the path. They fought the battles. Now you stand on their shoulders. Don't dishonor them by staying silent. Don't disrespect them by forgetting. Don't betray them by not teaching the next generation. Every time you create something beautiful, you're channeling Harlem. Every time you speak your truth without softening it, you're honoring Langston. Every time you celebrate your culture without explaining it to white people, you're embodying Zora. Every time you improvise, innovate, break rules, and create something new, you're continuing the jazz tradition. Their strength didn't die with them. It lives in you. Use it. God brought your ancestors through slavery. Why? So you could have this moment. God preserved your family through Jim Crow. Why? Because you have an assignment. God gave Langston Hughes poetry as a weapon. He gave Zora Hurston anthropology as armor. He gave Duke Ellington music as liberation. What did God give you? What weapon? What gift? What assignment? You weren't born in this time by accident. This is your moment. Your generation's Harlem Renaissance is happening now. Black artists are creating at unprecedented levels. Black writers are telling stories that publishers ignored for decades. Black musicians are topping charts with unapologetically Black music. Black filmmakers are making movies that celebrate Blackness without white saviors. This is your Harlem Renaissance. Will you be part of it? Your mission is clear. Learn your history. Not the sanitized version they taught in school. The whole truth. Read Langston Hughes. Read Zora Neale Hurston. Listen to Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong. Watch documentaries about the Harlem Renaissance. Study the artists, the writers, the musicians, the intellectuals who created beauty in the midst of terror. Teach your children. Don't wait for schools. They won't teach it. They'll give your children one paragraph in February and call it Black History. You teach them. Read them Langston Hughes's poetry before bed. Play Duke Ellington at dinner. Tell them about Zora preserving folklore. Tell them their ancestors were geniuses who changed the world. Support Black artists today. Buy their books, stream their music, pay for their art, go to their exhibitions, attend their performances. Because the Harlem Renaissance proved that Black culture is power, and power must be supported, preserved, and passed forward. Create your art, write your stories, make your music, paint your vision. Don't wait for permission. Don't soften it for white comfort. Don't filter it through anyone's approval. Create authentically. Create boldly. Create unapologetically. Langston Hughes stopped asking permission in 1926. Why are you still asking in 2025? Be dangerous. Not violent. Dangerous. Dangerous to lies. Dangerous to erasure. Dangerous to systems that profit from your ignorance. Langston Hughes was dangerous with a pen. Zora Hurston was dangerous with folklore. Duke Ellington was dangerous with music. What will you be dangerous with? Find it. Use it. Change the world. Subscribe to this channel right now. Click that button, because we're exposing hundreds more stories they tried to hide. Next week, the Black women mathematicians who calculated NASA's moon landing and were erased for 50 years. The week after, the all-Black town that defended itself against the KKK with guns and won and was removed from every history book. Every week, we're restoring stolen history. Every week, we're honoring forgotten heroes. If you don't subscribe, you'll miss it. And this knowledge is too important to miss. Tell your children about Langston Hughes tonight. Read them I Too before bed. Teach them they are America. Tell them about Zora Neale Hurston, that a Black woman with $1.50 became one of the greatest writers in history. Play Duke Ellington at family dinner. Let them hear genius. Let them know that's their heritage. Don't let them learn Black history from teachers who sanitize it. You be the teacher. This isn't entertainment. This is education. This is preservation. This is resistance. They erased the Harlem Renaissance once. We won't let them do it again. Share this video with everyone you know. Black, white, young, old. Everyone needs this truth. Truth unites us. Lies divide us. And this truth is powerful enough to change lives. Now bow your heads with me. Father God, we thank you for Langston Hughes, for his courage to write truth when lies were profitable, for his gift of poetry that made a people proud, for his refusal to ask white permission to exist, to create to be beautiful. We thank you for Zora Neale Hurston, for her determination to preserve our stories when the world wanted them forgotten, for her genius that survived poverty and neglect and is now eternal, for her unapologetic celebration of Black culture exactly as it was. We thank you for Duke Ellington, for 3,000 compositions that proved Black music was sophisticated, complex, and worthy of concert halls, for his refusal to be limited by white critics' narrow expectations of what Black music should be. We thank you for Louis Armstrong, for revolutionizing music while facing discrimination so severe he couldn't eat in the restaurants where he performed, for his genius that transcended the racism that tried to contain it. We thank you for Harlem, for that sacred space where Black genius gathered, created, and changed the world, for that moment when Black pride exploded into art and literature and music that still influences us today. Lord, we pray for justice for those who died, poor, despite giving the world richness. We pray that their descendants receive the wealth that was stolen. We pray that the exploitation ends. We pray that Black artists today receive fair compensation for their genius. We pray for restoration, that the cultural appropriation that continues today would end, that Black artists would be celebrated and compensated, not copied and exploited, that the next generation would learn this history completely, honestly, powerfully. We pray for awakening, for every Black child to learn about the Harlem Renaissance, for every Black artist to create without apology, for every Black family to pass this legacy forward with pride. Bless those who teach truth in a world that profits from lies. Protect those who resist erasure in a society that wants to forget. Strengthen those who create despite oppression, despite poverty, despite systematic barriers designed to stop them. Give us the spirit of Harlem, the boldness to create without permission, the pride to celebrate ourselves without seeking white approval, the courage to reject anyone who tries to limit our artistic expression. Make us dangerous to every lie. Make us preservers of every truth. Make us warriors for every stolen story. Make us carriers of the fire that burned in Harlem in the 1920s and still burns today. Until Langston's dream is no longer deferred. Until Zora's culture is fully honored. Until jazz is recognized as the genius it always was. Until every Black artist, past, present, and future, receives the recognition and compensation they deserve. We pray in Jesus' name, who said the truth will set you free. And we walk in that freedom today. Amen. The Harlem Renaissance wasn't a moment. It was a movement, a declaration, a revolution. It said we are not asking, we are telling. We are American. We are artists. We are geniuses. We built this culture, and you will respect it. Langston Hughes wrote, "I too am America. Not I want to be. Not please let me be. I am." Zora Neale Hurston lived it, creating without apology, preserving without permission, being Black without softening it for white comfort. Duke Ellington played it. 3,000 compositions. Each one proof that Black culture is sophisticated, complex, eternal. Louis Armstrong improvised it, revolutionizing music, changing how the world understands artistic expression, creating beauty that transcended the racism that tried to contain it. They cleared the path. They paid the price. They built the foundation. Now it's your turn. Create. Celebrate. Educate. Preserve. Tell the stories. Honor the ancestors. Pass the legacy forward. Walk in the pride of Harlem. Create with the courage of Langston. Preserve with the determination of Zora. Innovate with the genius of Duke. Improvise with the brilliance of Louis. You are their descendants. You carry their fire. Don't let it die. This is your history. This is your inheritance. This is your power. Claim it. Use it. Pass it forward. The Harlem Renaissance didn't end in 1937. It lives in every Black artist creating today. It lives in every Black child learning to be proud. It lives in you. Stay proud. Stay Black. Stay creative. Stay dangerous. God bless you. Until next time.